I mean, you're just hearing him snap these notes out, and it's like, oh my, he's not off. I mean, every singer's supposed to be a little off, but
Not
he's just
Michael.
like banging these things out, and
Yeah.
at
Well, and the other
12
thing
years
too,
old,
his dance.
you know?
I mean, the dance that he created.
Absolutely.
Honestly, the moonwalk and everything else, the robotic, all of that moves that he did.
Mm-hmm.
I still see it copied constantly. I don't see anybody actually being able to come up with anything in that arena that's not a copy of a Michael Jackson move. I mean, he almost
Absolutely.
invented a style of dancing, if you will.
He did. Well, he had, Charlie Chaplin was one of his great heroes.
Yeah.
I had another one for you. Tiva wants to know, why is the media so nasty to Michael Jackson? I mean, that one's kind of...
It's, what's interesting is that the media has calmed down now since his death, but there's still, kind of the need to find the dark side of Michael again. And,
I think it's the need to find the dark side of anything. I mean, people loved the Matadors because you wanted to see blood. I mean, it's human nature. It's awful, but it's what it is.
That's part of it. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's certainly part of it. But I think too, with Michael Jackson, he has become one of the biggest targets, and still remains one of the biggest targets of negative press and rumor and innuendo. And if you think about it, what's going to happen with this Conrad Murray trial is the defense attorneys are going to drag out every single drug that Michael Jackson ever supposedly or allegedly took, and all the incidents of Michael's drug use, and the media is going to eat it up, and they're going to present it all and smear Michael all over again. It's very sad in death he's still facing, his legacy is facing yet another trashing, and it's nuts. I mean, when you think about it, the dark side, we're attracted to it, but how many people, in single individuals, can you think of who have had that much trashing in one lifetime?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was under that microscope, and I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, we have another caller for you, Robin from Beverly Hills, California.
Hey, Robin.
Robin, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Just ready to explode here.
We want to hear your
Well,
question.
don't do that. That could be messy. It's going to be hard to clean up.
That's for sure. I can just imagine how poor Michael Jackson felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to call in because, when I really enjoyed Aphrodite's book, and I found it to be enlightening, and it confirmed my feeling that Michael Jackson was not a pedophile but a victim. And the reason I believe that, in addition to the information in the book, is that I was kidnapped by a pedophile and was a missing child for 2 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
And I was heavily exposed to pedophiles as a child and have done lots of research for a book I'm writing about it. And I have found several research studies that conclude that pedophiles on the average have around 100 victims in their lifetime.
Wow.
And Michael Jackson had a heavy exposure to children. I mean, he could have had several hundred victims if he chose. And the fact that there were only 2, potentially 3 that came forward and accused him of this, and all of them wanted money, it really leads me to believe that he's not a pedophile, because had he really been one, there would have been a myriad of cases coming forward.
True. After the first one, a lot would have come forward and said,
I
me
think
too.
That's a great point, Robin. And, I think people don't think about that because they don't have the perspective. I'm sorry that you went through that trauma as a child, but you have an insider's view, therefore, I would imagine. And one of the things you bring up, actually, the famed defense attorney, Mickey Sherman, who I interviewed for my show on Michael Jackson, he said to me, I don't believe Michael's a pedophile. And I said, why? And he said, because pedophiles have a number of, they can't help themselves, and they continue to go back, and there's a trail of victims, for a lifetime, and that did not exist with Michael Jackson.
Well, it's literally an addiction. Imagine a heroin addict and someone telling him, you can't do heroin because it's against the law. It's the same sort of mentality for a pedophile. They cannot help themselves, no matter what the cost. It can ruin their lives, and they still can't help themselves. And so we would have seen a lot more of this if Michael Jackson was truly a pedophile. There would have been case after case.
So, Robin, you said when you read my book, it confirmed. So you're saying that all the time that all these allegations were going on for all those years, you never once believed that any of it was true?
No, I didn't, because I always realized that he was a child that was emotionally undeveloped. I mean, even though he was a man, he grew up in a completely different situation as a child star. He never emotionally developed to adulthood. His childhood was stunted. That's why I think he was around children all the time, because not only did he trust children, because adults, were not easy for him to trust, but he could relate to them, because he was really, I think, a man a child in a man's body. And that's why his comfort level was so high with children. And he also seemed to have such a sweet innocence about him that children have, and
he really did
to them.
That's true. I mean, whenever I was around Michael, and it was just in the courtroom, but I was close enough to see, he was very just quiet and shy, and you'd never believe that, this is the person who gets out there and, puts on the gold and black costumes that, wows everybody and bedazzles everybody with all that glitter. In person, you look at him and you think he just wants to be in the corner and be really quiet and just sweet and shy, and that's wild.
And if you look at his track record, I mean, all the wonderful things he did for children with no expectation. And he did a lot of things anonymously. I mean, as a pedophile, he would have worked that to the hilt,
Yeah. That's another good point, Robin. I just
he would have been on the cover of every newspaper that he's at this hospital with that one.
What's so horrible with Michael is that this last, this last trial that was in 2005, that this accuser and their family were grifters, and they came forward to not only accuse him of molestation, but to say, you molested a child who was a cancer patient that had stage 4 cancer. What worse allegation can you make against any human being?
Right, exactly.
Those grifters basically ruined his life. I mean, they tarnished his reputation to the point where that man, I think it killed him. And
that's my feeling. It really...
For what, for money?
Yeah.
Was for money. It was absolutely for money. I mean, they were using the Chandler playbook and, actually taking some of the specific details that the Chandlers claimed and saying these things happened to their kid, Gavin Arvizo. And yet when they got on the stand, they all had different stories. None of the stories matched. The kid couldn't remember, was he molested 5 times or 2 times? It became 2 times on the stand instead of 5 times to the police. Everything was just inverted and twisted around, and they were impeached by Tom Mesereau. They were proven to be liars on the stand, every one of that family that testified. And yet you don't hear about that. You just hear there was another allegation and there was a trial and did he do it? And oh my goodness.
Well, I think he left the door open when he settled with that, with that one case. He left the door open.
He left the door open because he got bad advice. He
did. But for him, it was pocket change. But on the whole, for the principal, I think it was bad advice.
It was very bad advice. But remember, and that was back in an era when your media wasn't in your face 24/7, and everybody wasn't sitting there making decisions. And now we're all aware. Before General McChrystal even has the meeting about whether he's going to be fired or not, we're all aware of it with the media the way it is today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already in this guy's business like as if we're running the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've already made a determination. He needs to be fired, or, it's inappropriate. I mean, we've come to a stage with media that is so evolved from the time back in time, if you think about 20 years ago almost, 1993, that he settled. That's almost 20 years ago. It was a different world, and he had people around him who said, just make this little problem go away. This kid...
Right.
The family, they want money, they want to be in the movies, they want to be this, they want to be the stars. Just make them go away and go on with your career. And it was a big mistake.
That was your bad advice, yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't the type of person that made decisions for himself. He had other people make decisions for him regarding these matters. And so, a lot of people try to say, well, he was guilty, he paid him off. Well, yeah, he didn't make that decision, though.
I agree with you. I don't think he made the decision. Certainly didn't make it alone. Somebody, and there's, I think there's also this, a lot of fans believe that insurance money paid out that settlement, and it's possible that some insurance money did pay out the settlement. We don't really know all the details of it because it's a gagged, signed, sealed, delivered settlement, but we do know that the kid made allegations. Those are on the internet. You can see them black and white what the allegations were. the Chandler kid, but yet the mother came forward and testified in court, and I saw her and watched her myself, and she said nothing ever happened between my son and Michael. And they traveled as a family with Michael, and the mother was in the bedroom with her kid when he was with Michael. And, you know, and then you have Evan Chandler killed himself.
I mean, this woman, let's just say that, I mean, if she thought he was molesting her child, the fact, I mean, she's the one that's at fault if it happened anyway, because she should have not left her child with a quote-unquote molester.
If that alleged,
if it was even happening. You have to remember, too, there was never been any allegations ever that Michael penetrated anyone or, had anything, anything besides pubescent curiosity. It seemed like those were the allegations to begin with.
Right.
So you really have to go back to how do you know? I mean,
what really happened?
What really happened?
And what's the true story then?
And how easy would it be for people who see all the money that Jackson had to figure out? You know what?
I need a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Well, and what if the kids, because they are kids, what if they might have instigated something and Michael didn't know what to do and he was like, sorry, I can't do this or whatever. But, I mean, there was a whole phenomenon going on in the 80s and 90s and even in the early 2000s where therapists were planting these ideas into kids' heads that they were molested.
Yeah.
And they really weren't.
Well, that's another, that's a whole nother, can of worms. But I definitely know, and I can say with proof positive, that the case against Michael Jackson, and people are confused. They think there were 2 trials against Michael Jackson. There weren't. There was only 1 trial against Michael Jackson for molestation, and that was with the Arvizo family. And they said that Gavin Arvizo, the boy, said that he was allegedly molested. That one trial proved without a shadow of a doubt that those people were lying, that they had previously accused other people of molesting them, and won a settlement for it, and that there were very many details that they used that actually specifics that came from the Chandler allegations that they were used in court. And when you look at all that and you put it together, you say to yourself, first of all, these people were trying to get money out of Chris Tucker and George Lopez and Jay Leno, and I mean they were grifters. But secondly, suddenly Michael Jackson, they have an opportunity to see the Bashir documentary makes it look like Michael Jackson is molesting this kid, and now they don't know what to do and don't know what to say. So what do? They go to the same lawyer that the Chandlers used, the same lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of going to the police, instead of going to the authorities, they run to a lawyer to plead their case that, oh my God, our kid was molested and we need to go to court. Because had they won, they would have gotten a $20 million settlement.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
in the civil court.
People do a lot of bad things for just $100,000. So, for these type of people, and when you read their background in your book, Aphrodite, they have a pattern of this type of behavior.
That's it, and people don't realize that. They just, on the surface, most people think, well, there was an allegation in 1993, and then there was a trial in 2005. So there's multiple places that Michael Jackson is alleged to have molested somebody. When the truth is, no. The only real allegation that we know of was the one in 1993. Then there was a second kid that I think, again, squeezed money out of Jackson. His mother was a maid for Jackson.
Right, yeah.
And I think there was even a third one that squeezed some money. And then that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, Michael rose above it all until this Bashir documentary.
Robin, thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much, and I really recommend that people read Aphrodite's book. It's eye-opening.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing the show. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Let's go to line number 2.
Hello?
Dave, Houston, Texas. How you doing?
Good, fine.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Oh, yeah, I have a question for Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so going to Martin Bashir, on your last radio interview, you mentioned that Bashir told Gavin to hold Michael Jackson's hand and to place his head on his shoulder. I was wondering if you can go into detail with that.
Yes, I can. I was told by 2 sources that, in fact, when the Arvizo kids were brought to Neverland to do the Bashir interview, they were brought there because Bashir had the idea, well, let's bring a kid on the documentary who you helped. And Michael actually had 2 kids in mind. One was David, I don't know if you're familiar with this child who was burned alive by his father. The father poured gasoline all over him, and he was burned alive, and to the point that he's almost unrecognizable.
Oh, boy.
I met this child many years ago during the Phil Donahue show, if anybody can remember it that far back. But anyway, one was David, and the other was Gavin Arvizo. And for whatever reason, Bashir chose Gavin Arvizo, the cancer victim, and that's who came up with his siblings. And it was years after Michael had actually helped them with the blood drives and whatever.